Hello everyone. I would like to continue with my previous lecture where I was talking about social services and the mission and the relevance of social services, particularly in the Indian context. So, in this context, I would further add on that the social services are presented with two basic forms of criteria, that is, the institutional social services and field social services. When you talk about institutional social services, it provides services or it providing social services which would take place within institutions, which at the same time represent also facilities of the social services. And then we have the field social services, providing of social services which does not take place which will not take place within an institutional structure, but this would be happening within the natural and social structure, that is the natural environment or household. So the significance of the mission of social services is declared in the sense that the character, purposefulness, and missions are mainly focused on the people who are socially disadvantaged, in the interest of increase of quality of their life, taking into regard the interest of a wider community. Social services in this context, overlaps with broader category of public services provided in the interest of the public. The primary interests can be surged in those aspects that public services are financed through public budgets, and at the same time and in comparison with other services, they are defined in more detail in the laws. On the other hand, social services can also have a commercial character in connection with provision of social services through business contact between the provider and the user of social services. So provision of social services takes place at the cost of public and non-public providers of social services. The issues of social services may be looked upon from various aspects and from various points of view, on the basis of economic conditions, based on the socio-economic situations in the country, on the basis of laws regarding social services, and social services from this point of view represent an integral part of the existing system of social protection, thus delimited in the legislative shape. Shape on the basis of the circumstances, social services can be accessed as an integral part of the global public interest and good. On the basis of direct responsibility guarantee, when social service appear in the form of challenge or a tool in the process of searching balance among various areas of competencies, then on the basis of general legal requirements based on organizational, procedural and material conditions, and lastly on the basis of direct performance of social services, when a human being is in the position of a requester and recipient of social services is getting to the forefront. So these are the certain issues which may be looked upon in terms of social services. Process of social services, underlied transformation of original activities which are based on voluntary and charitable activities of individuals and organizations, with strong religious aspects for process of providing assistance and as a care as an integral part of every human fair and advanced society. The increased emphasis has been there, and which represented an important integral part of these evolution ideas since the second half of the 20th century, which was being laid on the area of quality of provided services, and which played an important role in the process of transformation and humanization of social services. So it becomes in fact a qualitative dimension of social relations among the people, representing a philosophical axiological basis of the issue of quality of services, just as important. It is just the quality of provided and distributed social services against the recipient and the user of social services that is getting to the forefront in the modern society. So this is what it particularly focuses on the relevance and the mission of social services. If you talk about the quality of social services, it emphasizes on the process of quality, and it becomes necessary in its, that within its purposefulness, the social services fulfill the scope of specified criteria, such as if you talk about the quality, these points are important if we want to ensure that how social services are being implemented, formulated, implemented, and being monitored, supervised, and evaluated. So, to look into the qualitative aspect of how effective these social services would be. So, support of independence and autonomy of social service users, support of independence, not dependence on social services, support of social inclusion of social service users, respecting of individuals' needs of recipient of social services, guarantee of partner cooperation of various entities, guarantee of equality in providing social services, and a guarantee of equality in providing social services without any prejudices and manifestations of discrimination. Further, further we'll move ahead and we'll talk about the present state of social welfare services. With regard to social services, which constitute one of the tools of social support, in fact, it becomes very important that it assumed that the state should ensure the creation of a system that would be based on respecting the dignity of each and every social service users or individuals who are into receiving, who are at the receiving end. So, supporting the process of independence, as well as increasing the social, as well as increasing the social and economic participation of the service users, ensuring the process of protection of social services users against a low standard of social services, that is, whatever services have been provided by the government, it would ensure that the quality is maintained, there is consistency in those services. The services are provided for the sake of doing so, but it should shun the low standard of and it has to maintain a dignified way of providing the services, enabling the social service users to live meaningful full and safe life in their own home. When there is this is regard to when we talk about the social service, the recipients of the social services, they feel they are living a dignified life, a meaningful life, they are fully participating in the socioeconomic aspect within their comforts of their home, ensuring that vulnerable groups of social services users are protected against emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, whether in their natural environment or within the social services facilities. It also looks into the fact that social services users of working age are provided social services in the interest of supporting as much as possible their possibilities, their abilities and capacities and capabilities are intact to secure employment and remunerated or to return to their previous employment, preventing the emergence of social exclusion of citizens or groups of persons at the level of municipalities or towns or village community or religious institutions, early recognition of adverse situations, and specifying appropriate social means and social service functionary, assisting in the process of supporting involvement of individuals or groups of persons in the community life, together with elimination or eliminating disadvantaged factors. It also looks into to the part of maximum maximizing the benefit of social services, which would look into or rather maximizing the benefit social services which will hold for its users via the creation of varied offer of provided social services, such as which would enable them to have choices which may adequately respond to the larger range of social services individual needs together with other circumstances. Transformation, if you talk about, there is a transformation of social services today. every person may need social intervention or state assistance at least once during the lifetime. And in some social events, they need systematic and long term support to cope with this difficult life situations. In other social events, they need a shorter support system. So social services have become a part of the social security measure. They have their place in the social policy of a state, and they have a place in the social policy of a state, local authorities and non-state subjects, and they help to overcome the unfavorable social situations of the individuals. Social service in the system of social protection, social policy, as well as the domain of social work. But yeah, I would like to make a suggestion that it is just not only confined to the domain of social work, but any other disciplines which would look into the integration of social protection and the policy prescription or policy matters. As I would like to give a very brief, brief statement regarding social protection. I will not get into the details of it. Social protection is again a systematic effort of a public subject to prevent and resolve difficult life situations that lead to economic or social need, and in which citizens are unable to solve their own issues by their own forces or by their family or neighborly assistance. So it becomes difficult for the individual, for the family, for the market to resolve the issues, the challenges, the problems which a person may be facing. So social protection in a way again is a systematic, a more formal way of providing some kind of assistance, some kind of safety net to the individual from the government side. So in the wider sense, it can be said that besides concepts such as social security, social care, health and social protection, it also includes the concept of labor protection and environmental protection, protection from abusive behavior, negligence, employment protection, etc. uh, if we Social services, they focus on the social assistance, and they are subject to the system of social protection in the country, because in fact there are certain national priorities for the development of social services, which are response to the important challenges facing the whole country, which is also the modernization of social services. So national priorities, national agendas, national welfare schemes are being developed in order to cater to social services measure, and which are in response to the various challenges and issues which have been faced by the so-called modern society. The objectives of national priorities, of course, in order to develop services, social services, which include in particular ensuring the rights of the citizens to social services, increasing the quality and accessibility of social services, with the emphasis on the development of poor, with the emphasis on development of poor social services or development of social services lacking in some higher territorial units and municipalities. So the objectives of social services becomes of paramount importance, that they are provided to the larger citizens, looking into the accessibility, affordability, and quality, maintaining the quality of the services which is being provided to the population. It also how to strengthen the poor mechanisms of service delivery. If we are talking about strengthening the social service delivery mechanism, it needs to look into the fact that whatever implementation issues or monitoring issues had been there in the previous delivery of social services, that has to be rectified. New modern approaches needs to be taken up, and in certain geographical areas, in certain remote areas, if the social services are not reachable, are not effective, that has to be strengthened through the decentralization of the services. Like the village communities, they are also endowed with the authority, with the power with the power to look after the developmental needs, to provide some services to the community, to the village community. The social protection system is based on national legislation and is therefore specific for each country, and this system represents a rescue social network for disadvantaged citizens, for poor ones, the elderly, the unemployed, but also the disabled one. If you look into the intersection of social services and social policy, social services are essentially created or implement essentially talks about the implementation of social policy in practice. While social policy sets the theoretical and legislative framework, social services are more of an operational kind, and it operates at at a more systematic institutional form that brings these policies to life. So through social services, actually social policies which has been created for the benefit, for the welfare of the people, uh, they they are operationalized through the means and mechanisms of social services. The success of social services often depends upon, or rather it depends upon the effectiveness of policy that it underpins it. And like for example, healthcare policies and services. So when you talk about social services, they are essentially, when you talk about welfare and support services, or when you talk about healthcare policies and services, policies like universal healthcare coverage influences the healthcare delivery systems. It ensures that healthcare services are accessible to all people have accessibility, or rather they have some subsidies in the purchase of medicine. They sometimes it is being waived out when in health expenditure. Health insurances are there for the people. So there are a lot of countries which supports this universal healthcare system, where it is a comprehensive and equitable health services to provided to the larger population. When you talk about the welfare policy and support services, welfare policy determines eligibility for social safety nets and income support, is shaping how these services like food distribution services, or unemployment benefits, or housing assistance, how they are being allocated and delivered, in what manner these, either it is in the form of policies, either in the form of welfare schemes and measures under different independent ministry and different heads. Then we have education policy and public education services. Education is one of the most important tool in order to positive change in the life and existence of an individual. Through education you get ample opportunity to exercise your rights. It gives you a freedom of choices, and it enhances your intellect. It results in cognitive development, intellectually the person tends to grow. So policies are aimed at increasing school funding, or improving teacher quality, directly affecting the educational services which the children receive. That there are certain policies, and in fact, if you talk about the education policies, particularly from 1968 till 2020, there had been a lot of modifications, a lot of changes, new legislations, acts that came into the existence in the area of educational upliftment, be it elementary education, be it primary education, be it higher education. It started focusing on particularly started focusing on the holistic development of the student. It tried to reject the rote learning, and where the students intellect, their creativity, their logical thinking, rational thinking had been given more weightage, talking about the strengthening of their mother tongue, strengthening the use of encouraging the use of their mother tongue, and able to understand strengthening the infrastructure of school, providing basic facilities to the children via schools infrastructure development, subsidies in stationaries. In fact, till the 14 years in India, there's free and compulsory education till the age of 14, which ensures primary education and encourages enrollment ratio. In fact, sometimes the certain like midday meal scheme where the nutritional enhancement is also taken into consideration. So policies prioritize early childhood education, which would result in effective mechanisms of having accessibility to schools and colleges. Then digital transformation, leveraging digital tools for efficient service delivery, reducing innovate reducing administrative reducing administrative costs, as well as increasing accessibility. So there is a lot of platforms which had been discussed in the welfare part also, that how this digital transformation is actually shaping and giving new direction in the area of digitalization and privatization. Integrated services also encourages cross-sector collaborations for a holistic support to individuals, like linking healthcare with housing assistance, or education and nutritional improvement. And then we have the right-based approach, which ensures social services are provided as a right, but not not as a privilege, aiming for universal accessibility to essential services, which is important, and which becomes mandatory for every citizen to receive these services, because the state is obliged to provide these services to the people. And then lastly, I would like to conclude by saying that it is very important to prepare to accept to carry further implementation, which requires achievement, which requires certain attention in order to shape social services and to bring a more a very a robust mechanism in the service delivery of such services. So they are, as we all know, that social services are part of public policies which clearly promote the human legal dimensions, which focuses on the needs and preferences of the recipients, and all the citizens who are dependent on social services due to the various unfavorable and other social situations. They always have the right to exercise their rights to a free and independent life with the support of society and on the basis of non-discriminatory principles. It is undisputable that respect for fundamental rights and freedom is a basic pillar of all documents agreed by the international community of states, such as the UN Conventions on the Rights of the Child, the UN Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the European Social Charter in its devised edition, and so on. So, but then there are certain important questions and the certain important aspect which needs to be answered, like in fact there are certain crucial questions which has to be again taken up when we look into the social service part, that what changes need to be planned in the structuring of the offer of services for citizens, and how to implement them. So what will be the more effective mechanisms or restructuring of the social services delivery mechanisms in order to make it more robust, in order to make it more efficient and successful. Then, and second questions would be how and on the basis of what to provide the territory with necessary services, at what kind of services in would be specifically oriented to for a particular target, how efficiently the national priorities are integrated in the social service delivery, and an important document should be made, which would be a result of cooperation of all important actors in the processing, the stakeholders. So the working group, preparing this document would be composed of representatives of individuals, people from the government, self-governing societies, regions, organizations, representing recipients, as well as the representations of the providers of, as well as the recipients of the social services. Then the scientific research sector would also be present in this group, purposefully and economically. A networking of stronger individuals should come together. They should form basis for effective and efficient social service, to so efficient and effective social service measure, in order to meet and achieve the most effective and comprehensive way of understanding people's needs and interests. With this, I end my today's topic, that is social services, and the lecture on social services and welfare services has come to end. In the next class, I would start with, or I will start discussing about a little bit of economic policies and its relationship to public policy. So there is a strong integration or relationship of economic, public, and social policies. That's all for today. Thank you.